The following video is entirely based on interviews and stories reported by other media outlets, which we collect and curate in an attempt to provide one coherent and well-rounded history piece from the world of professional wrestling.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Jeff Jarrett came back to the WWF in 1997, hoping to be programmed against Steve Austin. Although he won the Intercontinental and Tag Team Championships, Jarrett again left to go to WCW in 1999. It wasn't without controversy though, and when Vince McMahon purchased WCW in 2001, he publicly fired Jarrett on live TV. I am Luke Owen, and was this all because Jeff Jarrett blackmailed Vince McMahon? Jeff Jarrett's second run in the WWF got off to a very rocky start. He had worked with Vince Russo to write a promo where he would shoot on Steve Austin on the October 27, 1997 edition of Raw. However, there was a part of the interview that Russo claimed Jeff went off script with, when he said that Austin 316 was blasphemous and offensive. Jarrett would say years later that Austin went ballistic, got nuts, got right in my face. Bruce Pritchard added on his Something to Wrestle podcast, Steve was and rightfully so. There was going to be no issue with Steve and Jeff, so there was no need to go there. He was just trying to get himself over. Steve was livid. Many have theorized that it was this promo and segment that killed any potential of Jarrett getting a main event run in WWE, instead being cemented in the mid-card with nothing but a glass ceiling above him. In the summer of '99, Jarrett had decided that he was going to go with his buddy Vince Russo to WCW, where he would get the main event push he felt he deserved. His final feud in WWF was against China, where Jarrett had a gimmick that he hated women. This led to their infamous Good Housekeeping match at No Mercy 1999 for the Intercontinental Championship. The problem was that Jarrett's contract expired on October 16, 1999, one day before No Mercy. This is where the story gets a little bit murky. The long-standing rumor from those there at the time was that Jarrett did what the Ultimate Warrior allegedly did at SummerSlam 91 and held Vince McMahon up for money, otherwise he wouldn't go out and do the match against China, and he would go to WCW with the Intercontinental Championship like Medusa did with the women's title. Both Hardcore Holly and Chyna wrote in their autobiographies that Jarrett essentially blackmailed McMahon, with Chyna even going so far as to insinuate that he and Russo delayed the title switch until after Jarrett's contract expired, so he could use that as leverage. As Jason Solomon recalled, the guy's contract had expired, so from WWE's position, Jarrett blackmailed them into paying something like $300,000 to drop the belt because he was leaving. So they paid him the money. I'm sure that Vince McMahon off. Ryan Alvarez and R.D. Reynolds also wrote in their book The Death of WCW, because he held the company up for money, Jarrett was permanently banned by McMahon from ever returning to his company. The rumors are that Jeff held Vince over a barrel, and when he lost the match to Chyna, he grabbed his bags, got into his car, and drove off still covered in all of the flour used in the Good Housekeeping match, and he used the money he got from Vince to start TNA in 2002. As The Death of WCW writes, had Jarrett's contract come due a single day later, TNA would never have existed. So how did WWE manage to let their IC champ's contract expire the day before he was supposed to defend the belt? The fall guy ended up being Jim Ross, who was head of talent relations. However, Bruce Pritchard argues that it wasn't his fault. Instead, he puts the blame on Vince Russo and McMahon himself, and the only thing Jim Ross did wrong was take Jarrett for his word. Pritchard also disputes the claims made by Hardcore Holly, Chyna, and many others, saying in episode 65 of Something to Wrestle that Jarrett wasn't holding Vince up for money. Instead, he went in for a meeting where he asked for all the money he was owed from pay-per-view residuals and house shows in one lump sum before he left. Jarrett's worry was that because he was going to the competition with Vince Russo, the payments would be slow in getting to him, or maybe not even show up at all. Pritchard even refutes the idea that Jarrett left as soon as the match was over. Jeff went in and met with Vince and JR, and they cut him a check that day for whatever it was he wanted. He went out and did the match, put Chyna over like $1 million, and left. I remember Jeff coming up and he said goodbye to every single person in the building that night. Jarrett himself has maintained that he never held McMahon up before doing the job to Chyna. And even Dave Meltzer wrote in the October 25th, 99 Wrestling Observer newsletter that Jarrett leaving the WWF was civil. Jarrett talked with McMahon and seemingly both put the heat on Ross for the negotiations falling through, and Jarrett agreed to work the pay-per-view and drop the title, and in return, WWF praised him publicly and claimed the departure was due to a contract dispute with Ross. Perhaps we may never know the full truth of what happened on October 17th, 1999, but but we do know for sure that Vince McMahon publicly fired Jeff Jarrett on live TV. The date is March 26, 2001, and Vince McMahon has purchased his hated rival WCW. Raw and Nitro held a simulcast where in storyline it was revealed that Shane McMahon had actually purchased WCW from under Vince's nose. But earlier in the night, McMahon announced his plans for certain WCW talent. Now, as far as the Jeff Jarretts of the world are concerned, you know how Jeff spells his name? That's Jeff. Well, you know what? I would suspect that we'd spell it a different way after tonight. That would be capital G, double O, double N, double E. Gone. WCW wrestler Conan, who has a very good relationship with Jarrett, has gone on record of saying that he was next to Jeff when Vince made that speech. Double J just shrugged his shoulders and said, "I guess I'm fired then." Bruce Pritchard argues, however, that he was standing next to Jarrett and it was a totally different reaction. I had no idea Vince was going to cut that promo. Jeff laughed about it. He wasn't hired to be fired. It was just Vince cutting a spot for a television show. In an interview during his announcement of going into the WWE Hall of Fame, Jarrett told NBC Sports, "Vince does a lot of things well, and he knows how to produce great TV. To me, that night was just good TV." So if Jarrett didn't hold Vince McMahon's pay-per-view match hostage, and McMahon didn't fire Jarrett on live TV out of spite, then why is there this alleged heat between the two, and why is everyone so surprised that Double J is going into the WWE Hall of Fame? The most obvious answer is TNA. Jarrett and his father Jerry founded TNA in 2002 and helped create a platform that launched a lot of current WWE superstars like AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Eric Young, and Samoa Joe. But there were also questionable things that Jarrett did while he was with TNA, and they were trying to make a name for themselves. This included TNA invading a WWE commercial shoot in Orlando studios and filmed an unmasked Rey Mysterio supporting them, which they then aired on pay-per-view. And they did an angle in 2006 where the former Road Dogg and Billy Gunn renamed themselves the Voodoo Kin Mafia. Get it? VKM? And they cut shoot promos on Vince McMahon, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, even challenging them to street fights, showing up at Titan Towers, and accepting the Hardy Boys Open Challenge at ECW's December to Dismember. TNA wasn't just designed to give new guys a platform, it was supposed to be viable competition to WWE. They even managed to convince Spike TV to put them head-to-head with Monday Night Raw in 2010 when Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff joined. They didn't just want to be in competition with WWE, they wanted to beat the competition. At the end of the day, while it is a surprise that Jarrett is back with WWE after nearly 20 years, it shouldn't be that surprising since we've seen the Ultimate Warrior, Bruno Sammartino, Bret Hart, and even Sting show up. Bobby Heenan used to tell Dave Meltzer that he was careful about bad-mouthing Vince McMahon while he was working with WCW because he wanted to stay in his good books, but he never got a job back with the WWF when WCW closed. Heenan theorizes this was because he was in Vince's good books, and Vince only wants the people in his pocket that he can't have. So maybe Jarrett didn't blackmail him, maybe there wasn't any heat, maybe Vince wasn't bothered by Jeff's antics in TNA, maybe he wanted Jarrett in the Hall of Fame just because he can. Check out the latest rumors for WWE's Elimination Chamber. Click the videos on screen right now for more awesome wrestling content.